Dick Van Dyke is still singing at the age of 98, with his symbol the Fantastics, and continues to produce everything appears simple. Dick Van Dyke is getting closer to his milestone. Fans have been maintaining a 100th birthday closely monitor his health. Now, his relative Ashes provided a sincere update verifying that the cherished performer has been experiencing significant health issues in recent months. The news has deeply sparked worry among his followers and contemporaries as they accept the fact that the real little-known singer, dancer, and actor is in a weakened condition. Come along as we find out the specifics of this revelation. The longevity curse. It was meant to be a joyful day in Malibu. A gathering with the adored Dick Van Dyke, an actor, was supposed to tackle location, guaranteeing fans happiness and fun as well as families. Many were anticipating prior to his arrival at the Van Dyke assembling, but the news swiftly spread that would be impossible for him. Totent, as I'm feeling under the weather. At almost a century old, certain days can be too much for him. Arlene, his wife speaking for him, was Silver. She was truthful and didn't attempt to make things seem better than they actually were. Calmly she stated how he was simply having a difficult day. It wasn't a serious crisis or a dramatic circumstance, yet it was a giant struggle. This is the result of someone who has devoted their life to assisting others begins to feel the consequences of time. The supporters reacted to Mehdi with love and encouragement. They didn't disregard or criticize him, rather, they demonstrated empathy and encouragement. A lot of them had admired since boyhood. Van Dyke has valued his roles in films and television, has signified more than just a well-known and like a friend. He was studying that he was experiencing a challenging over time. They developed empathy and eventually, his family was at his house, silently and attentively observing, protecting him. They have consistently been. He is cautious when he appears in public. They are aware of his appeal and that his health was delicate. Arlen and the remaining family members are open but sympathetic. Their words express admiration as well as sadness. Dick Van Dyke has enjoyed a fantastic long. They want other people to celebrate it instead of worrying about the inevitable. Behind closed doors, there's a distinct silence that isn't brought on by fear, but by careful reflection. As one ages, even the slightest moments gain value. Whether it's a chat, a grin, or a tranquil, Dick doesn't try to get attention at night. No longer, as his reputation speaks for itself. He is now seeking peace, unwinding and spending time with people who love him the most. Growing older is due of the emotional suffering it brings. Regarding Van Dyke, among the most difficult aspects are witnessing the folks who were significant to him gradually fade away. Most of them have passed away, including his mentors, friends, and co-stars. His phone used to have their names on it, book, but they are now merely recollections in his heart. Edna's passing had a peaceful influence on him. Carl Reiner came next, Norman Lear came next. Every time one of them died, it seemed like had lost a piece of his life. They weren't only famous people. They participated in his past, his happiness, his conversations. They were those who were most familiar with him as they had experienced comparable encounters in the entertainment industry, aging and living in. He now considers those recollections with a kind look in high eyes that convey a comprehension that time continues to pass. Arlene has owed that this emotion is not of resentment or rage, but instead a calm regret for being among the who still there. She and Dick make reference to the curse of having lived so long. Not that they want less time, but they experience the weight of all the years they have survived. Birthdays are identified by both happiness and sadness as they recall those who have left them. Every year. There are more losses and more goodbyes to family members who previously brought joy and direction. Despite everything, Dick Van Dyke keeps an optimistic outlook. He keeps on hum small tunes, sing, and grin to himself. He cracks jokes with those nearby. And refuses to allow grief to take away his joy. He has made reference to when his life has been good and still has faith in it. He enjoys basic actions, such as taking a morning walk while enjoying soothing music, and savoring tender moments with his significant other Arlen. He keeps looking at the world with awe and gratitude for Thibity in ordinary situations. Even though possibly growing older and more active, his heart continues to beat slowly and warm and cozy. Each day, his family observes the difficulties he encounters simply to get out of bed. They observe how currently he moves cautiously, but they observe the well-known gleam in high eyes and listen to his comforting voice, though slower and a little softer. They acknowledge that he remains Dick Van Dyke. He did not make the choice easily to postpone his most recent appearance due to he is aware that he is loved. He put his health first, though speaking in front of a group of people can occasionally might be draining for him. Rather than he made the decision to force himself to get some rest. His supporters were sympathetic and in favor of his decision. Let's now examine Van Dyke's medical issues and contentious issues and their affectious well-being. The addiction that almost broke Van Dyke, known as Dick Van Dyke. His endearing chuckle and pleasant grin had a concealed battle with alcoholism that a lot of folks didn't know. In spite of his triumphant performances and faultless dancing steps, he was covertly fighting a terrible addiction that almost wrecked his existence. In the 60s and 70s, Van Dyke was a well-liked television personality, a special ed show by Dick Van. In spite of his satchafemit, he began to mainly rely on stress was induced on by fame, loneliness as well as high standards. Van Dyke resorted to drinking in order to cope. First as a way to get away, but eventually it turned into a bad habit. As his addiction worsened, it began to affect his closest friends and family. His marriage went through a lot of stress and his health began to degrade. On several days he was unable to pro correctly, and he became aware of his on-stage magnetism was waning. In spite of fans' inability to view his fan, DJK was in pain, feeling as though he was emotionally collapsing. 1972 saw him make a brave decision by going into a hospital for 3 weeks in order to get help. Recognizing his issue was challenging because not many well-known individuals discussed free at the time of addiction, but Van Dyke made the decision to work and face reality towards recovery, not only for himself but also for the future and his loved ones as well. Following medical treatment, Van Dyke kept concentrating on maintaining sobriety, held to his regular routine and placed in a great deal of work to stay free of substances. Over time he talked about his struggles with addiction openly, not to get notoriety but to assist people who were having trouble with comparable problems. His candor served as an inspiration for his supporters and conversations that have become more common regarding addiction without stigma. Even though Van Dyke was able to overcome his alcoholism, he still had to deal with health problems. The most of his adult life, he smoked a lot and had it difficult to stop. In order to counter his, he used Nicorette gum to satisfy his desires. Over 10 years, in 2013 he began feeling as though his heart was thumping head each time he reclined, which was alarming and medical professionals couldn't ascertain the cause. Despite going through, he conducted a lot of tests and cancelled events. Started to worry that his titanium dental implants could potentially be the cause of his unease. However, he stayed strong and determined to move ahead. Van Dyke's battle against addiction and sickness show that even those who are successful may encounter challenging times. What makes his story unique, his integrity and tenacity stand out in conquering such obstacles. He declined to surrender his life to addiction. Rather, he utilized it as a teaching encounter, demonstrating to us that it's never too late to ask for assistance, make adjustments, and start over. But Van Dyke's relationships have been examined by the general public, resulting in a lot of scandals. Dick Van's untold romance. As always, Dick Van Dyke has been surrounded by music, laughter, and contagious happiness that has the ability to lighting up each space he walks into. But behind his humorous roles and amazing dancing abilities, there's more a personal and emotional story that shows a man who cherishes family, love, and fortitude. Since his first marriage to his romantic pursuits in later life, the encounters Van Dyke had with the relationships are defined by steadfast devotion, harmonious and an unbreakable before being well known. In 1948, Van Margie Willett became Jing's wife. They started dating when they were young and imagining a peaceful daily existence together. Throughout the years, 4 children were welcomed into Thrilled, forging a solid familial connection. Dick continued to pursue his career in theater and television. As the demands of fame took a detrimental effect on their marriage. They persisted, making certain their family stayed unbroken despite the fluctuations. Their love was created throughout Van Dyke's time of self-discovery. Additionally, even if their union did not endure over time, it provided him with a priceless gem. His cherished kids, J.K. Barry, one of their sons, did not simply inherit the name of the father. He not only went after a profession in portraying his father, but next to him on the same TV screen. It was more than just a job at the event. It was a blend of devotion, affection, and the dynamics of families manifesting in each scene. This sincere connection brought a distinct warmth to the screen that struck a chord with viewers, causing them to sense the genuineness of the depictions of relationships. The audience wasn't merely watching actors recite lines. They were seeing several bringing generations together to share their love of performing and orative. Following Van Dyke's initial after his marriage failed, he found comfort in enduring friendship with Michelle Triola. Triola had an important part in his life when he was at his best. They had fun even if they weren't married, a lasting friendship that endured theaters of time, overcoming obstacles and peaceful moments spent together. This Van found strength in his friendship, J.K. Carr, amid difficult circumstances, giving Jim in the midst of the chaos, with emotional equilibrium of the ever-changing nature of life. The most surprising development in Van Dyke's romantic life occurred considerably later. Stage at the moment he met Arlene. 2006 saw Silver. Arlene is a cosmetic artist, working at an event behind the scenes, was 46 years Van Dyke's junior in spite of the age gap. Van Dyke was captivated by Arlene's calm attitude and contagious vitality, something that spoke to him following years of emotional detachment. Their partnership developed gradually, beginning as companions who connected over significant conditions, mutual giggling, and increasing mutual trust. In 2012, Arlene and Van Dyke were married. Despite the large age disparity, approximately 46, years between the elderly Van to 40-year-old Arlene and DJK. The public discussion on their age difference did not disturb the pair, as they were centered on their close relationship. Arlene played a variety of roles in their connection, not only as a spouse but moreover as a committed carer and vital creative partner for Van. She supported him through thick and thin, and scrawny, going with him on his travels, keeping an eye on his public looks, and planning the exciting featuring the lively Vandicamp, a gathering that made Van happy and motivated, as detractors expressed worries regarding the substantial age difference between them, with others suggesting that Arlene might be out to Van JKK because of his wealth or fame. He consistently conveyed his sincere emotions. Van Dyke regularly liked Arlene's serene and loving manner, highlighting the breadth of their relationship. Their affection was more than merely clear. Anyone might feel it, watching how they interact. As time passed, the public as a whole started to acknowledge the sincerity of their connection. Real-time photos of the dancing together, laughing together, and the songs harmonizing revealed a story that no headline could contest. In spite of the prosperity and notoriety that the general extally, who observes Van JK's life has been replete with unseen conflicts that have influenced his path. The concealed Dick Van DJK battles. Dick Van Dyke has always had the ability to make people happy. Individuals based on his roles in Mary Poppins to his television programs, his charm has consistently delivered. In spite of his apparently contented existence, there were yet moments of uncertainty and rivalry that heffest in private. Despite the fact that he was, despite being widely adored, Van DJK nevertheless had difficulties, particularly in relation to working together with co-workers and coping with the demands of celebrity. When the origins of the Dick Van JKK show, not all of the footage was flawless. The role of Van was assigned to Mary Tyler Moore on screen, Dick's wife, although he had some misgivings about her at first, she being youthful and without acting experience. It caused Van DJK to wonder whether she was prepared for such a significant responsibility. Mary, however, felt a great deal of pressure. She admired Van JKK, but felt uneasy on the set next to him. She feared making a mistake. The show's early days weren't full with disputes, but with a nervous sensation both of them were looking for their whereabouts, which led to a tense scene. But as time went on, things began to get better. The pair of the actors started to have faith in one another, and their relationship became closer with each other. Episode. In the end, their relationship grew into one of the most recognizable in the history of television, typified by sincere friendliness and take care. Years later, Julian Van Jake Andrews played the lead in the classic movie Mary Poppins, which audiences adored. Even though they have a lot of chemistry on film, off screen things were less glamorous. Media enthusiasts began endorsing the ability that they were the ideal pair, creating speculation about more projector as well as a potential relationship. Van Dyke admired Andrews but was unwilling to be trapped in a story written by others. There wasn't any actual conflict between them, simply the strain of being made into a public persona that didn't mirror reality. They were experts, not a fairy tale pair, and the demands made of them made things awkwardly with each of their movements was examined and made into a rumor. Tension wasn't from strangers for Van JKK or studios, although his relative, especially Jerry, his younger brother Van DJK, an actor as well. Jerry had his supporters and put up a lot of work, but he lives under his shadow all the time. Dick, the more well-known sibling, although Jerry had the chance to follow up on leads, in parts such as Gilligan's Island, had declined them in order to avoid being compared. Alongside Dick, the brother is not the same. Instincts were clear when both rejected the identical section, in spite of their distinctions. Jerry was frequently regarded as Thelasar Van DJK in the world's perspective. The brothers' competition was not dramatic or boisterous, but it was always in the present. Jerry freely acknowledged in interviews that were difficult living in the shadow of Dick. It was probably killing for Dick as well, given that his achievement inadvertently eclipsed he took care of his sibling. As Van Dyke grew older, he began to feel irritated in a fresh sense. It wasn't due to his co-workers or detractors, however due of the amusement industry itself. The 1990s and the early in the 2000s he saw a shift, it becoming more difficult for him to perform. He wasn't the reason behind it. Despite their talent, Hollywood was more centered on actors who were younger. The telephone ceased to ring as frequently. Manufacturers and he was no longer contacted by casting directors. He was quite irritated by this. He had devoted his entire life to honing his acting abilities. He had a great deal of energy, enthusiasm and happiness to provide. However, his age started to prevent him from obtaining new chances. He made a statement about it, in a sincere way, not an angry one. Though the fascination of the entertainment industry with many elder actors have felt the impact of youth. Unseen, Van DJK was unwilling to simply recognize that he continued to act, even if it entailed playing lesser parts or focusing on autonomous endeavors. His zeal never faltered, but he continued to confront accuse the erroneous rumors that would not abandon Dick Van DJK. For longer, Dick Van DJK, who has been a well-liked celebrity in Hollywood, well known for his radiant smile, vivacious manner, and his happy voice, has made many people happy. Individuals but even well-known celebrities like he may be the target of unfavorable gossip. Dick Van Dyke has encountered fraudulentals that have endured throughout their years. These rumors, which include false dead reports, erroneous statements, and deceptive headlines, have harmed even though that isn't true. Van Dyke has encountered the distressing problem of death scams several times. His death has been falsely reported, becoming viral on social media. These most accounts say he died in a vehicle accident, either by accident or an unexpected heart attack. Fear swiftly spreads as fans all around the world hurry to confirm the news. Some people weep, some people light candles, while others pray, thinking they've lost their sweethearts literally, but in a matter of minutes or hours, it becomes clear that everything was a fabrication. Van Dyke has not passed away. In spite of this, the psychological effect has already had an impact on both himself and his admirers. These false reports have an effect beyond random individuals. Imagine having a role in seeing your loved ones and his family name that is popular on the internet with the term Dead 99. That type of tension is challenging to forget. Van Dyke has made jokes triggering these fictitious alarms. It's not all right. It acts as a prompt that the internet does not always consider how before propagating misinformation. Real people have feelings. Van Dyke is seen by many as more than just he stands for joy and pleasant times, recollections and vintage entertainment. Thus, whenever the rumor circulates, it feels as like the entire planet is keeping its breath in terror. But the misinformation is not limited to promoting bogus, death-related rumors. Fake quotes are also often shared, and assertions made about him that he never stated. These assertions frequently appear in Facebook and other social media sites. Posts on Instagram and Twitter claiming Van Dyke made powerful political declarations or a few of these posts might be meant to be satirical, but others are completely fabricated. In spite of the absence of fact, a lot of individuals continue to think and spread this false information, permitting it to proliferate more. Van Dyke's reputation for his moral convictions. He's openly supported political leaders like previously Bernie Sanders, but he was also cautious. Yet he didn't lose his cool, but questions were raised as to whether a person his age ought to still be driving by yourself. After 10 years, the Van Dyke disaster made the news. March 2023. Van Dyke was operating a vehicle in Malibu during a downpour, and the roads were slippery. As he was operating, his Lexus lost in the damp weather. Control and struck one of the gates. He was not without wounds over time, hepatized, a bloodied nose and possibly a brain injury. Despite not being a Sarusham, it raised worries among the general public. Upon the arrival of the police, they ascertained he wasn't under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Compounds. However, the greater worry was his age. At 97, individuals began wondering if he ought to remain driving. The vehicle collision brought up a problem. When should senior citizens people quit driving? This is particularly difficult for someone like Van Dyke, who has consistently been involved in autonomous, as admirers displayed their social media support, and many pleaded with him to stop driving in order to protect himself. Van Dyke has experienced mishaps in the past. He's been having accidents since the start of his career. During the 1960s, as the Dick Van Dyke program was being filmed, he had a really unpleasant experience. He was well known at the time for his comical and physical humor. He would do stunts such as falling, tumbling, bouncing and spinning on stage to create people chuckle. Because of this, the show was extra popular and brought him notoriety. In the course of one during the concert, something happened awful. While attempting a humorous trick, he lost some of his teeth after a heavy fall. Despite the severe suffering, he did not put an end to it. However, what admission has Van Dyke created, and what was the response of fans? Van Dyke's devastating admission. Dick, at 99 years old, Van Dyke is capable of aging in a favorable manner, which few people are able to achieve it. He's been in for more than 70 years. Show business has always making other people happy. Lately, he has been preparing for the conclusion of his life in a thankful and peaceful manner. Late fans were taken aback when they saw him in 2024 Cold All My Love music video. His calm demeanor and gentle grind did not merely act, but instead expressed a message. He has no fear. Although some battle with the idea of dying or becoming resentful as he gets older, Van Dyke has discovered tranquilly. He is aware that any day might be his final one. However, he moves closer every day with humor and elegance. His sincerity, who has been devastating and inspiring his followers. He has consistently been an extremely vivacious individual, but admits that there are certain things he regrets. The action he took. At 98 years old, he expressed his remorse in public about not looking after himself better, instead of being a complaint. This was a careful consideration that with his wife Arlene's assistant Silva, he now works out frequently and has an optimistic outlook. They have built a happy life together that was full of with dancing, laughter, and everyday inspiration. In spite of his advanced age, Van Dyke to be active and move with grace. Among the scariest incidents in recent years, wildfires jeopardized his home in Malibu. He needed to get out. Tired and isolated, he crawled in the direction of his vehicle, possibly facing grave risk if not for his kindneighbors who helped him escape. This getaway acted as a prompt for how, even for someone, life might be fragile, just as lively as Van Dyke. The narrative that one of his fans was genuinely shocked previous. One day at sea when he fell asleep, Onund floated far out to sea on a surfboard. Frightened, he saw fins going around him in circles. To his relief, it was a group of porpoises rather than sharks. They led him back to safety with gentleness. This was a unique and enchanted story, simply similar to him. Van Dyke spoke in May 22/5 regarding his lengthy career and impending 100th birthday. He stated that the majority of outliving is a challenging aspect of aging. Nearly every one of his pals, in spite of saddened by this, he refuses to allow it brings him down. He still finds pleasure in engaging in performance and social interaction. He calls himself a ham, and he still likes being the center of attention. The desire to perform is still present, powerful despite his ancient age of nearing 99. He continues to set new documents. He just became the oldest individual to receive a daytime Emmy, demonstrating that passion and skill do not fade as actual bodies do as they age. When asked about his goals for the future, he declares his willingness to continue working. He has no plans to retire anytime soon. Acting is more than simply a job for him. It is necessary for his health. His supporters have lavished him with affection. Social media users are demonstrating his significance to them. His reflections on aging, his tenacity at difficult times, and his inner many people have been profoundly impacted by calm. What are your opinions on the rumors pertaining to Dick Van Dyke? Do you believe he will survive till see 100? Post your ideas in the remarks that follow. Additionally, remember to hit the like, subscribe and notification bell for more thrilling contentals involving your favorite celebrities.